Welcome to our next session of EPM Chronicles and Confessions. And we have Andy King here. Andy, could you please introduce yourself and your journey in EPM?
Yeah, thanks, Tim, and lovely to be invited to be here today. It's been a good honour, and really looking forward to it. So yeah, so Andy King, as you described, I'm currently Director of Product Management within Oracle for the EPM area, based out of the UK. So I report in ultimately to Matt Bradley, who's well known in the industry around that area. I guess I've had quite an interesting and varied career to get to this point, similar to a lot of us, been around this space for some time. And I track right back to 1995, 96, Hyperion Enterprise as a young management accountant. One of those sliding doors moments. My boss asked me to come in and said, "Do you fancy working on putting this new system?" I went, "Yeah, why not? That's interesting." That happened to be Hyperion Enterprise. I started that journey. Went through a couple of clients, different pieces, doing similar areas, and then actually joined Hyperion in late '98 into their team there, focusing more, then shifted actually into the S-base and planning side, rather than the consolidation. And then after a few years, loved my time there at Hyperion. It's a fabulous organisation to work for at the time, and as a young person, was great forming that career. I actually decided with a few colleagues to step out and start and founded Analytica, which grew into pretty decent size organisation, predominantly in UK, but a little bit around other parts of the world. We grew that quite successfully into a nice organisation, and then when there was a lot of consolidation in the market, we were acquired by KPMG. So we decided to sell to KPMG, which is a very interesting process to go through. Learned a huge lot of stuff. We'll probably cover during the rest of this session. Yeah. But I went to KPMG and actually enjoyed my time there. Worked a lot around trying to build that practice. It didn't quite work out how we wanted, and I stepped away after 3 years. Again, loved my time there. Then started to look again about whether to start again, and a couple of us tried to build again. But I'll be honest, I didn't have the energy and the passion that you need to build a company again. Yeah. And then I kind of decided I needed to move away from consulting and delivery. Wanted to try something different, and ended up Oracle offered a role within pre-sales, which I thought was an interesting piece. Had a itch to scratch there to go back into Oracle and actually work with some people who I really wanted to work with. Some guys, and some of them are still there. Some have moved on into different roles. And then about 3 years ago, had the opportunity to move into the product development role. So that's the shift. So it's a long sort of journey there. Pretty much most of my career now has been stamped with Hyperion and obviously EPM Cloud now. But so it's a big passion of mine, as well as obviously formulated my career, and I would say a lot of my friendships outside of my family. So.
Fantastic. So I like to confess to a failure of mine, and I can't convince my mum what actually I do. So she's not, so I've given up. So have you had any kind of misconceptions of what you do, or to others outside in the industry?
Yeah, you probably have exactly the same as me, Tim. My mum always says, quite often says, "When are you going to go back to accounting? Will you be all right?" Yeah, Mum, I'm doing okay. I've got quite a good career. I'm doing all right. Yeah, I think she worries about what I'm doing. But that's similar. No, same. I often say I'm like the Chandler from Friends. Most of us have watched Friends over the years. And no one knows what he does, and I think it's similar. And knowing I was coming on this, I asked my daughter today. She's 16. I asked Grace. I says, "What do I do?" And she said, "Well, you do some stuff with IT, and you work for that company that are on the Red Bull cars." And I went, "Okay, at least you know I work for. I'll take that." And I work with IT, and I think over the years I've kind of just said I work in IT because it's easier. People kind of understand that. I don't classify myself as an IT worker. I think we do a lot more around that. So I think it's a big misconception, and I think the way I describe it normally is, the easiest way a lot of people can pick out outside of our industry is, when you hear organizations reporting their numbers or talking about their plans for the future, that's the stuff we help them with. So we're very specialized, and I work in that area. So that's kind of how I get through it. But I think there's I think if people outside of IT and finance industries really struggle with what we do. And
I think I've got an idea. I'm going to interview my mom one day on one of these.
We'll get a panel of mums that you can ask, what do your sons do?
Exactly. So going on, what's been your biggest challenge in EPM, and what was your solution to overcome that?
Yeah, I think there's been different ones at different points in my career.
Sure.
I think, if you go back when I was, as a young budding, person, it's about learning and being able to take those requirements that an organization have and build out a solution. And they're wide and varied, and you find your way through those. I think then obviously as, founding and working in an organization, it's all of those growing pains and how you challenge through those. The biggest thing there is finding good people and building a culture that enables them to grow. I think that's
Sure.
a big piece. I think around I'll be honest, the Oracle acquisition of Hyperion
Mm,
as a big challenge in the marketplace. I was
it
obviously we
was,
were a partner at that point,
yeah,
and that led for some interesting times. And I think there's ups and downs to that through those
sure.
pieces. So I think my challenge is those common ones. I think I'd also say on a personal level, it's bringing the balance of of a family and the other
Yeah,
things you have in life, which for me, I know this is a work related one, but finding balance in your life is always a big challenge. But bringing it back to that, the EPM piece is really just keeping track, keeping up to date, being able to give that good advice. And I think it's a constant challenge. It changes in different ways as you go through your career and the different aspects, but it's
yeah,
those are sort of those areas.
fantastic. Could you share a success story? Yeah, it doesn't have to be, it could be a couple of them, but yeah, it's really something that's personal to you, that's a success story in EPM.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of really good project ones that spring to mind. Some that I'm very proud of. One, I won't name the organisations that don't need to, but one was a really large one around marketing finance actually, and they were taking a man year to do every forecast. Their people were
Wow.
working
Wow.
18 24-hour days to get them across the line every month, and to be
Sure.
able to put a system in ultimately over course of a few months that helped them transition to a proper forecast type solution. That's really great, because yes, we're helping that energy, but we're fundamentally helping them do what they do, freeing up their time so they don't have to spend 24 hours at work. And so things like that always spring to mind.
Yeah.
But the last project I actually delivered prior to joining Oracle was delivering regulatory stress testing for a bank. One of the
Wow.
driest subjects we do, but
Yeah.
we delivered that in 8 weeks end to end.
Oh,
And
wow.
from inception through to delivery, and that's something I'm very proud of. It's very agile. Lots of pieces involved in that, but as a delivery, it's something I'm very proud of, and that's still still being used today. And
Yeah,
I think
no, that's great.
so those sides. I think then when you put that to having grown an organisation, and to be acquired by one of the premier professional services firms in the world is
Definitely.
it's something, and I'll always state that as I'm very proud of what we've done there. So I think that mirrors the last thing I would say is I look around now, obviously back in Oracle, I look around and I've got friends and colleagues and people who I think we brought on and worked in leadership roles across our
Sure.
partnerscape, across our competitors, as I
Completely.
as they
Yeah,
are now.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I'm really proud of that there's these people that I've worked with
Yeah.
and we've worked together over the years are still out there and in leadership roles and driving the marketplace. And I think that's something for me I'm very again success I'm proud of, and I think that's if I've paid even a tiny part of that, that's great. So.
That's really good. Fantastic there. So, yeah, related to that is really, what's the most rewarding part to yourself, to what you do in EPM, or, in your career?
Yeah, I think the bit I've always enjoyed is meeting people, whether that's
Yeah.
our customers, our partners, our colleagues. I think that's I always find that very rewarding. So I found the last few years a little bit challenging, being more at home based with everything going
Yeah.
on in the world.
Yeah.
I have a nice setup, and that's nice to spend more time with the family. We talked about that a minute ago,
Sure.
but I think that piece, it's interesting to be able to see that evolution over the years of organizations who've been able to transition with the solutions. Our partners that have grown or that I used to be sit alongside and still there. So I think just seeing some of that piece is hugely rewarding, and if we can make even a small transformational change to someone, whether it's in day-to-day role, like I've heard, on some of your previous podcasts, people have people in tears, and we've had a few moments like that one where, you take the pain away from what they're doing, and the stress, and that's a lovely thing. We've had a couple of those. There's one of our favorite sort of anecdotes is there was a particular organization who had an Excel bit. It was a bit like Lost, that the macro was so complicated, and it was built by Dave, who went back to Australia. And no one knew how it worked, but they knew if they kept the screen active, it would work through. And so at month end, they'd have to work in shifts overnight to keep pressing the button to make sure it kept working.
Right.
Like, how have you got yourself into this situation?
Yeah.
But then, being able to then take that to a point where we deliver a system that doesn't require that hand holding, that's hugely rewarding to see people, genuinely, genuinely pleased about what's been delivered. I think that's very rewarding, to step away from that.
Cool. So another question, really, and I'm sure you've touched on some of this already. Have you got any funny moments in your career that you can share with us?
Yeah, we always like that Australian Dave one. There's a number. Then there's lots of them. We have to strip away because there's a bit of fun involved. But I think some of the work ones. I can always remember one of my first big meeting at a customer. Stood outside, just gathering my thoughts before I walked in, and let's just say a bird. I would think it must have been an albatross or something. Decided to use me as a post, and I then had to walk into the office. Wash my hair and my suit jacket and my thing to turn up to the customer looking a little bit disheveled and not particularly a thing, and those sort of things stick through. The accidents that some of your colleagues and team have are always quite amusing. I think one that happened not that long ago, actually, I was asked to speak at a conference, and it's all a bit of a last minute thing, and I turned up, and I'm standing there before, and there's a few hundred people in this audience sat around, and I'm listening to the person before me, thinking this is a bit strange. And then they introduced me, and it was a legal services, professional services event, and they said, and here's Andy King, who's going to talk to us about performance management. I thought, performance management, they've dropped a letter there, and basically it was an HR type event about performance management and HR. And I had to kind of stand up in front of the stage and go, I think I've kind of the wrong booking here that you're looking for. I've got a slightly drier subject for you guys, which is finance related performance management. So we kind of had to fast track that one. That was a slightly, so interesting few moments. Let's put it that way.
Cool. Yeah. So you've been an entrepreneur, and you started your own company, but now what inspired you to join your current company and actually stay there too? Also, because it's a fluid market. There's lots of opportunities out there at the moment. What's your inspirations?
Yeah, I think, as I said earlier, I felt I had a bit of an itch to scratch still. I enjoyed my time with Hyperion. We obviously went down a different direction and focused on that. I felt I wanted to go back into the software house. I enjoyed that. Obviously, Oracle, had that piece. So I felt I wanted to, going back in and see what that was like, being back in, if you like, at the coal face of that development. I enjoyed my time in pre-sales. I think I was kind of ready for a transition then, and luckily was able to move into, to be honest, a role I've long sought after, to work in the product management team, and especially, with the Oracle team and the old Hyperion, teams. There's some people in there who I count as, as very clear leaders around this area, and I've often, aspired to listen to them.
Sure.
Use them. So to actually be part of that team now is something that I kind of really look to do. So working in there and that challenge and working with that development team that again through my career is they've helped me and helped me transition is been key. So I think yes, obviously there's a lot, I agree, a lot of fluidity in the market, and as I said earlier, I've got a lot of friends and ex-colleagues now who are sitting in similar roles in in some of the competition, and that's fabulous, because for me that's showing that we're those people around,
Fantastic.
So, but for me, I think the actual role I'm in now is kind of that key to it. It's something I've often hoped I would get to at some point during my career, and to be there now is something great to work with.
Thank you. Yeah. So as you know, the marketplace is very competitive. There's a lot of vendors, new vendors, and also all sorts of consultancies, companies, AI, all this stuff. So how do you keep track of all this? The competition, the trends, even some of the people you might recruit, things like that. How do you keep a track of stuff?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Tim, and it's about keeping active, and you're someone who's exceedingly active within the marketplace, and I think it's looking at all those people who are active. I try and do a bit myself, for me, it's looking at all of those people who in leadership roles across those areas, and even in other pieces. For me, I think another big area to track is our customers, and our teams out there delivering that solutions. And I think so for me, it's all about talking to people and keeping in touch with what they're doing, on a formal and an informal basis. As I said, friends around, we talk over a beer, and don't divulge secrets, obviously, but we have conversations. And I think so the biggest thing is investing time in it, in understanding that. There's resources out there that you can use, but I think it's very much is looking at those people who are active in the marketplace and talking about things. And I think it's fascinating. I'm fascinated to hear what our competition are doing, and what they're developing, what they're looking at. That fascinates me. I think it's great. As I say, there's great people in all these organizations. So for me, it's investing time to look at it is the important thing.
Yeah, so I know, like myself, you're very passionate about youngsters or people joining this industry, or novices learning their trade. I mean, we were all there once. What's your advice to them, really, and how to go about it, because it's evolving our industry very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope, and I always want to try and give back, because there's people who helped me in my career over the time. Consultants I work with, people I've worked with, as I just said, the product management team that I'm, currently part of. For me, is giving back into it. And I think for the advice, if I can give any, is focusing on what you're trying to do. Don't try and be a jack of all trades. Be a master at what you try and do. And if you have a passion for performance management, enterprise performance management space, then focus on that and become really good at it. Immerse yourself in what's going on. Take the time to understand it. And I think, there's two sides to then that is to make sure you're doing that breadth of understanding, as we were just talking about, who you're looking at, who you're talking to. Invest time in yourself, not just in what you're trying to do. The most important thing, is I think, and some of your previous guests have said it, is enjoy what you do. I love what I do. I'm one of these awful people when I speak to my mates who are complaining about their jobs or what's going on. I love what I do. I have bad days. We all have bad days, but I'm very passionate about that. And I said, if you can find, I said to my kids, if you can find that love, it doesn't become so hard. I know it's difficult, but I think if you immerse yourself and really focus on one thing, everything else comes with it. The promotions, the career, the money, which is why we all come to work. And the last one I would always say is take what you do very seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. And so have some fun along the way and enjoy yourself, and make sure you find that balance. And I've always done that. I've always loved the times we had at Hyperion and the times I had with Analytica and others. Is work hard, but then make sure you celebrate that work and take that time.
I completely agree. So the thing is, and this is quite an important question, I guess, for yourself too. Where do you see the industry evolving in the next 5 years, especially with all the stuff that's happening lately?
Yeah, it's always an interesting one, Tim. I wish I had a great crystal ball, because I'll be making some considered investments if I do, but as we all would. I think for me, the trends that we're seeing and the stories we're hearing from our customers and what we're being challenged to do, I think is simplification. I think people want to simplify what they're doing, in terms of the ownership and working it through. And I think, that's a challenge. That obviously, to do some of that, AI, machine learning, Gen AI, all these things, they are going to form a part of what we do. and we need to find how do we bring that into the tooling to help our users, to help our organizations we're working with, make the best use of those, take it from just being on the technology and putting it into the use cases that they need. Again, I always try and look, if we think about, EPM in particular, generally, I know it's operational users, but generally financial users, they spend a long time training to become accountants, not to become technical people.
Right.
So for me, it's about bringing all of these great technologies that we're working on and are affecting the market, but bringing them as a use case for the users that, as I say, are an accountant or an operational analyst or whatever they are. And so I think the big changes for me, obviously that's going to drive those change. The other piece, as I say, we see is that simplification. I think there's going to be, we're due a move in the market. If you go back to when we sold Analytica 2010, there was, all the other big SIs bought, a boutique partner. And that was off the back of 2007 and 8 when, SAP, IBM, Oracle bought the platforms. I think we're kind of coming close to something around that again. Possibly, SAP probably need to make a move. What are they going to do? Again, I have no special knowledge around this. It's more just, I just got a feeling that there's going to be some movement around those, and we're certainly seeing some movement in the partner base, aren't we? Of some partners are merging and things. So I just feel we're at the cusp of that, and obviously with everything going on in the world, economically and outside of what we do. I just feel like we're getting over the next 5 years. I feel that there'll be a bit of a shift there, and we'll have to deal with what that brings. So I suppose just the three big things would be that the AI, generative AI, will have a massive impact on what we do. I think innovation and bringing that together is a big piece, and then it's just going to be what the market forces bring. I think would be my sort of bit. But I wish I had a crystal ball and a bit more extra money to invest. We'll see where we go to.
Definitely. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this podcast, and definitely please keep in touch, and have a great day. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for your time, Tim. Really enjoyed it, and speak again soon.
Thank you.